If there's a hero who inspires terror in his enemies, it's definitely Batman. But when we look closely, the Dark Knight carries a mind filled with guilt, trauma, and mostly fear. As children, we thought Bruce Wayne created Batman to save the city from crime, but in reality, he created him to punish himself. A little Bruce Wayne was playing with his friend Rachel. While they were playing, Bruce falls into a well. Everything is dark and he's hurt. Suddenly, a horde of bats emerges from the darkness and surrounds him, an experience that will mark him for life. Fear will be a fundamental element in this film, and how it can destroy and at the same time offer a symbol of justice and hope in Gotham City. The scene abruptly changes. Bruce, now grown and abandoned, wakes up, scared. It was a nightmare. We then discovered that Bruce is in a prison, specifically in a jail in Bhutan. During lunchtime, while waiting in line for his ration, he's attacked by the leader of the inmates. Without hesitation, Bruce firmly resists and then teaches him a lesson. When other inmates try to join the attack, Bruce defends himself with great skill. Finally, the guards intervene and lock him in solitary confinement. There, he meets a mysterious man who knows his identity and jokes that Bruce is obsessed with criminals, that he even goes to prisons to confront them. This man introduces himself as Duckard and explains that he is there on behalf of Ra's al Ghul, someone who shares Bruce's ideals of justice. This enigmatic figure wishes to recruit him for the League of Shadow. Duckard tells him that it's clear he's lost, but they can show him a way. He must find a blue flower in a remote mountain. Only then he will find what he seeks. He charts the course for a thought that won't leave Wayne's mind. The transformation into an ideal, a different man, a legend. Bruce is released and begins his journey. He walks through the icy mountain until he finds the blue flower. Following the instructions, he arrives at a remote village where the people regard him with superstition. Despite this, he continues until he reaches his destination. Upon arrival, he's surrounded by several men. Just when it seems he won't get out alive, he shows the flower. Then, Duckard and Ra's al Ghul intervene. The latter gives his approval. Duckard explains that this place he will face death, his fears, and that to manipulate fear in others, first he must master his own. Bruce's training starts right away, with an immediate defeat in combat. Duckard then asks him about his fears, which makes him recall the time he fell into the well and was attacked by bats, though his father quickly came to his rescue. From there, we learn about his childhood. A fundamental word in this movie, fear. A natural emotion characterized by experiencing an unpleasant and intense sensation upon receiving a real or imagined danger. A mental alarm intended to protect us. Yes, it's a weakness and undoubtedly a necessary strength. In Batman Begins, fear takes center stage. It's almost as if fear becomes a character on its own in this movie. Thomas, his father, lowers a rope and rescues him. He's not stressed, but calm, and transmits that calm to his son. He gives us a phrase that we should always remember in any situation in our lives. He says to them, "Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up." Alfred the butler listens and smiles. They enter the mansion, and his mother strokes and cares for him, but the fall leaves a mark. Bruce begins to have nightmares about bats. His father tries to reassure him, saying that they only attacked him because they were afraid of him. Since we all feel fear, as I mentioned before, it's a universal emotion. Even terrifying creatures feel fear, just as much as a superhero who instills fear in criminals could even carry more fear inside of him.
All creatures feel fear.
Even the scary ones.
Especially the scary ones.
Bruce had a happy childhood with loving parents who were committed to the well-being of Gotham City. They were aware of social problems such as the high cost of transportation, so they built a train system that connected the city, and it was accessible to everyone. In fact, they used it regularly. Bruce's father was a doctor at the hospital, while his company, whose tower is the tallest building in the city, who was run by partners more interested in profit, something he committed on ironically. For Bruce, Thomas is not only his father, but also his hero. He's the one who's always protected him from the world. When Bruce fell into the well, it was Thomas who went down to rescue him. He wasn't agitated, but calm, with a confidence that made him feel everything would be alright. For that boy, his father was his refuge, his certainty, and also his role model. A man with strong values, powerful yet generous, strong yet compassionate. Someone who not only talked about doing good, but lived it. Through this example, he taught him to distinguish right from wrong. While his father was there, Bruce felt safe. He felt that the world had order, and that he knew where he should go. And perhaps years later, when that boy becomes a superhero, he will do not only for justice for the city, but also a way to follow his father's footsteps, to honor the first hero he knew. One day, the family goes to the opera, but Bruce gets scared when he sees figures that remind him of bats. The performance adapts to the story of Faust. This specific scene we witness is none other than Walpurgis Night, when demons and other worldly creatures, cleverly presented as bats, are in ecstasy. Beyond being the perfect representation of Bruce's story in the trilogy, the Walpurgis Night scene, the only one shown in this opera, is a subtle reminder that crime, evil, and the preservation of good from the essence of Gotham, they dominate the scene, so to speak. And in the next scene, this evil will celebrate its victory. Visibly distressed, Bruce whispers to his father if they can leave. Thomas, noticing his anxiety, agrees. They take a shortcut through the dark alley. There, they are intercepted by an armed robber who demands money and jewelry. Thomas cooperates. When he sees the thief pointing the gun at his wife, he steps in and then fires, receiving a direct shot to the chest. And in the chaos, the mother is also shot, so he can finish stealing her jewelry. Little Bruce is completely paralyzed, and his father tells him his last words, "Don't be afraid." From this moment on, guilt will be used as a catalyst for fear. This trauma, in which fear and guilt merge, further imprisons the fear that caused the loss of their parents. What would have happened if they didn't left the theater because of Bruce's fear? We don't know. And sadly, a feeling of guilt would extend throughout Bruce's life. A feeling of guilt that in turn provokes fear, which later, in Bruce and his recurring thoughts, would lead him to a moral and identify a struggle with himself, the breakdown of a person who would never see his world any other way. This little boy saw the world very differently because Bruce Wayne's childhood was a sanctuary of protection, filled with unwavering love of his parents, the steadfast support of Alfred, and the comfort of wealth that shielded him from life's harsh realities. His early world was one of certainty, where danger and fear seemed distant, and all that love and attention revolved around him. He lived inside a bubble where he didn't know lack or any fear. However, that illusion shattered the moment he fell into the well, a pivotal rupture that exposed him to chaos and vulnerability, turning his world upside down. The image of the bats became a hunting symbol of his fragility, embodying the terrifying truth that the world harbors darkness beyond any bubble of security, a reminder that the world could hurt, that one could be alone, that nothing was completely safe. However, his father descended to rescue him, momentarily rebuilding the bubble. Thomas Wayne's rescue offered a false hope, the idea that the horrors of the world were reversible. This revelation marked a turning point. The night he watched helplessly as violence claimed his family, and the word of his father, "Don't be afraid," took a sinister weight, fueling his belief that fear itself was the enemy that had robbed him of everything. He watched the pillars of his universe collapse into pavement, leaving him with a toxic revelation. Fear is a catalyst for death. From that moment, Bruce's battle was not just against external threats, but against the crippling power of fear, which he saw at the root of vulnerability and loss. His quest to conquer fear became a mission to shield others from the pain of solitude and helplessness, driven by desperate hope, ensuring that one would never have to face the darkness alone in the empty alley again. At the police station, he's informed by Officer Gordon that the perpetrator has been captured, but that doesn't console him because his mind, he's the real culprit. Bruce is left in care of Alfred, the loyal butler, and has the company of his friend Rachel. Alfred tries to confront him, telling him that the fault lies not with him, but with the criminal and no one else. Even so, Bruce cries, deeply missing his parents, a pain that Alfred also shares. After telling all of this to Duckard, he asks him if he still feels guilt. Bruce replies that his rage has far passed any other feeling, and after this, his arduous and rigorous training begins. He learned traditional and modern martial arts, ninjutsu, stealth technique, psychological manipulation of fear, and theatrical combat, disciplines carefully selected by the League of Shadows to turn him into a living weapon. He wasn't simply supposed to know how to fight multiple enemies. He had to learn to dominate his surrounding, to disappear into the shadows, to control the perception of others, and above all, to inspire a visceral fear that would paralyze his opponents even before the battle began. After the void left by his father, Bruce finds two father figures in Alfred and Duckard. While the butler tries to get Bruce to use fear to control himself, Duckard tries to get him to use fear to control others. Duckard believes that all acts of violence should be completely eradicated with zero tolerance. His words are harsh and dismissive, insulting Thomas' memory by claiming that in his final moments, Thomas lacked the strength to act against evil, an accusation that leaves Bruce confused, as he believes self-defense was all that was possible when faced with a gun. Duckard asserts that Bruce is stronger than his father because he harbors anger, a fiery force that will fundamentally reshape society through relentless justice. Bruce, however, perceives this as a lie. He cannot accept that he will never be as strong as Thomas, whose philosophy was rooted as compassion and understanding. This ideological battle, the tension between mercy and brutality, it is at the core of Batman's very identity. The hero is caught between the compassionate ideals of his father and the ruthless strength of his mentor. During this period of training, Decker decides to open up to Bruce and reveal the dark aspect of his past. His wife had been murdered, and consumed by despair and rage, he resolved to seek and carry out revenge. Only after achieving his goal did he join the League. This revelation contrasted sharply with Bruce's internal dilemma. He confessed that despite pain and rage consuming him, he had been unable to perform revenge. He felt that justice could be based on anger, as it only transformed it into another form of violence. This viewpoint distanced him from his mentor, and asked him why he didn't avenge his parents if he loved them so much. This prompted Bruce to recall his past with greater clarity. He had studied at Princeton for a time, but soon felt that the environment, however charming, wasn't for him. He didn't feel understood or connected to the purpose that consumed him, so he decided to leave. Alfred believes in the future for Wayne and never loses faith in him. Bruce wants to blow up the mansion since he doesn't consider it his home, but his butler warns him that the legacy his father left him for 6 more generations is also the duty to take care of what he loves most, his son. Alfred in this moment already shows us a paternal figure of support and affection. Bruce is not alone, though he thinks otherwise. Bruce returned to Gotham City to attend the parole hearing of Joe Chill, the man who murdered his parents. Chill had agreed to testify against mobster Falcone in exchange for his legal benefit. Bruce, without telling Rachel, hid a gun with the intention of killing him. However, before he could, a woman disguised as a reporter got there first and killed Chill. His revenge is done, but he still feels nothing. Rachel takes him to see how Gotham is suffering because of the Falcone Mafia, where drugs and poverty cremate the city's smoky alleyways. He shows them that he almost killed them. Rachel confronted Bruce harshly. She told him that the desire to kill wouldn't even make him any better than criminals, and that his father would be ashamed of him for even considering. Bruce is left reflecting and decides to throw his gun into the sea, realizing that he will not be better than the criminal that took the life of his family. Driven by the need to understand the criminal underworld and motivated by his confrontation with Rachel, Bruce sought Falcone, whom he considered indirectly responsible for his parents' death. He confronted him, but Falcone, cold and calculating, reminded him of his place in the city. He mocks him, saying that just because someone took his mommy and daddy's life doesn't make him understand the dark side of life. He warned him that he could also lose Rachel and Alfred, just as he had lost his parents. Despite the contempt he showed, he admitted that Bruce had more courage than his father, but he also downplayed that virtue. Finally, he threw him out of the bar. The conversation he has with Falcone, they also talk about fear, that precisely the greatest power that the mobster has, how to control judges and police officers. And with the phrase, "Don't come here with your anger to prove anything to yourself. This is a world you'll never understand, and you'll always fear what you don't understand." And that's how Bruce perceives that he has to be around criminals to understand the whole world. When they take him out, Bruce talks to a homeless man and for money, buys his coat, leaving him his own. He decides to immerse himself in the world of poverty. He learns what it means to go hungry to the point of stealing. He discovers the line between right and wrong isn't always so clear. He associates with criminals, survives like them, and crosses boundaries he never imagined. That's how he ends up in a prison like Bhutan. One of Bruce Wayne's most underrated and arguably most profound qualities is his capacity to listen and admit his mistakes, and grow from them. Initially, driven by raw emotion, he impulsively pursued justice, fueled by grief and anger over the brutal loss of his parents. However, Rachel helped him realize that he was becoming what he swore to destroy. Bruce then shifted his approach. So then he aimed to confront Falcone directly, but was met with a harsh truth. His knowledge was incomplete. He didn't fully grasp how the world truly functioned. Still, he listened. He didn't let the pride or ego blind him. Instead, he acknowledged his lack of insight and committed to learning. To do so, he immersed himself in the criminal underworld, seeking to understand the motivations and mindset of those he aimed to fight. What sets him apart is his ability to pause in amidst chaos, analyze the situation, adapt his tactics, and attack with purpose. He recognizes that he doesn't have all the answers and remains committed to continuous growth, a rare trait among heroes. This humility and willingness to learn to make him not just a symbol of strength, but a hero defined by his thoughtful, evolving approach to justice. After months of training, Decker tells him that he still lacks the most important thing: facing what's inside him. Before the duel, he exposes himself to the vapor of the blue fire he picked on the mountain, which distorts his sense and causes him to have terrifying visions of bats. His greatest fear. As we talk about bats symbolizing all the overwhelming things he experienced as a child, inside of his mind, his fear of bats is what caused the death of his parents. And this fear was so engraved in his broken mind that when Bruce confronts him, he's confronting his past, his trauma, his pain. Despite he is shaken up by the bats, he regains control with a clear trick, defeats Ducker with a sword. He has passed the test. As Ra's al Ghul assigns him one last task to complete his initiation, to execute a prisoner accused of robbing and murdering his neighbor. Bruce refuses, arguing that compassion is not a weakness, but a virtue. Ra's then reveals the true purpose of his training: to destroy Gotham City, a city corrupted by corruption. Horrified, Bruce sets fire to the League's headquarters to prevent it. During the chaos, Bruce fights Ra's while others escape. Lightning strikes Ra's, killing him. Bruce knocks the guard unconscious and rescues him before everything explodes, leaving him in the care of a villager. He then contacts Alfred, who arrives in a private jet. Bruce, missing for 7 years, was declared legally dead by William Earl so that the Wayne Enterprise could go public. Bruce has no regrets. He left everything in Alfred's hands, who jokes that he can use the Rolls Royce if he returns with a full tank. He decides he's been away from Gotham too long. It's time to return, confront crime, and avenge his parents' death. But he knows an ordinary man wouldn't change anything. If he wants to make a difference, he must become something more, a symbol, a legend. Bruce himself would make it clear with this phrase: as a man, I am flesh and blood. I could be ignored, I could be destroyed, but as a symbol, I could be incorruptible, I could be everlasting. As poetic and noble as this sounds, if we were to extract Bruce into a slightly more realistic context applicable to our world, his obsession with eradicating crime appears to be rooted in personal desire to fix the mistakes of the past, as if by punishing wrongdoers he could somehow atone for the tragedy that his father suffered. While this motivation is human and understandable, it also keeps him attached to his grief, preventing him from truly moving on forward. When loss dominates your thoughts and actions, it often signifies unresolved pain and denial, and an inability to accept that some things cannot be changed. The harsh truth is that the past cannot be changed. Bruce's parents will never return, and clinging to guilt only prolongs his suffering. True growth begins when he shifts in his focus from what he lost to what others could still lose, transforming his mission from a personal vendetta into a proactive effort to safeguard others from the same heartbreak. By doing so, his purpose gains new depth, no longer driven solely by guilt, but by hope and a desire to create a safer future. This shift allows him to transcend his grief, turning his pain into a catalyst for genuine change rather than a perpetual cycle of regret. In the city, Dr. Jonathan Crane, a psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum, has been helping to transform criminals out of prison by feeding insanity, all under the influence of monster Falcone. Rachel, now the distant attorney, confronts Crane, suspecting corruption. That night, Crane meets with Falcone and demands that Rachel be neutralized. When Falcone refuses, Crane threatens the presence of his true boss. The mobster is visibly intimidated. Bruce secretly returns to the city and takes up residence in the abandoned Wayne Manor. In the attic, he sees a bat flying, following its trail. He descends into the well where he fell as a child and discovers a vast underground cave filled with bats. The bats surround him. Bruce closes his eye, takes a deep breath, and this time he doesn't run away. If the bats represent his deepest fears and past hurts, facing them in this way means he's finally confronting them directly. He doesn't turn away or hide. He looks at them honestly, accepts that they are part of him. It doesn't mean that the fear is gone. His breathing is still uneven, and the pain is still there. But now, he refuses to let that fear control him. He's choosing to be braver than his fear. The bat symbol, which once reminded of his fragility, now stands for his resilience. What once held him back now becomes his weapon, something that can make others tremble when they deserve to. This moment marks the end of the boy haunted by fears and loss, and the birth of Batman, the hero who doesn't forget his pain but uses it to drive him to protect others and change the future. Bruce visits Wayne Tower and goes to the Department of Applied Sciences. Fox, the person in charge, finds a survival suit, a bulletproof, knife-resistant. It was developed for the military use, but was rejected due to its high cost. He also became interested in an experimental military vehicle, capable of jumping obstacles using a rocket booster. Bruce borrows the suit, and Fox agrees, knowing that everything belongs to him as the rightful heir. In the cave, Bruce and Alfred discovers the mansion's foundation, an old elevator connecting the house. Bruce begins modifying his costume, adding gloves and goggles, and painting it matte black. He's ready to take his first step as a symbol. One night, already in disguise with his new equipment, Bruce heads to the police station. He sneaks into the office of Sergeant James Gordon, one of the few honest officers. He is not corrupt like his colleagues, but he cannot do nothing to prevent it in such a corrupt city, which is why he's a vital ally to Batman. He asks him why he needs to take down Falcone. Gordon replies, to pressure the judge and sufficiently courageous prosecutor. Bruce promises he'll get help and escapes by leaping across rooftops, injuring himself in the process. Back home, he realizes he needs a glider or a parachute. He turns to Fox again, and little by little, he's refining his gadgets and everything he will use for his new identity. He tells Alfred that he chooses the bat as a symbol because it scares him, and it's time he shares his dread. Meanwhile, Falcone receives a new shipment of drugs. With corrupt cops, no one plans to stop him. The drugs are hidden inside stuffed animals. The bears go to their usual destination, the rabbits to the Narrows, an island within Gotham, where the most dangerous neighborhood is located. The men are unloading the merchandise when suddenly one disappears. There are loud bangs. A lamp explodes. A bat-shaped boomerang falls from the sky. The men look up. A black figure leaps at them. One by one attacks them, disappears in the darkness, terrorizing them, and knocks them down. Falcone grabs him and trembling asks, "Who are you?" In a grave voice, the figure replies,
I'm Batman.
Meanwhile, Rachel gets off the train and is followed by two Falcone's men. She threatens one with a taser and is surprised to see Batman take down the other. He hands her evidence against the judge and disappears just as an agent appears. When the police arrives, they find the thugs neutralized and Falcone tied to a spotlight, projecting the shadow of a bat in the sky. News of the vigilante spreads quickly. The chief is unhappy, although Gordon defends, saying he turned Falcone in. Rachel and her district attorney debate whether vigilante evidence is enough to bring Falcone to trial. Alfred rakes Bruce in the afternoon, worried about his injuries. He shows him the press coverage and tells him he must maintain a normal public image to deflect suspicion. Exotic cars, parties, luxuries. Bruce refuses to play as Apollo as an alibi, but agrees to exaggerate his role as an eccentric millionaire. Executives discover that a powerful weapon belonging to Wayne Industries, a microwave emitter, has been stolen from a ship. This weapon can vaporize the enemy's water supply. Meanwhile, Bruce takes the Playboy concept to the extreme. He attends a party with two companions who end up bathing in the hotel's fountain. When the manager protests, Bruce simply buys a hotel. There, he sees Rachel for the first time since his return. He tries to explain to her that his behavior doesn't reflect who he is. She replies what matters is what he does, not who he claims to be, and she leaves disappointed. Falcone, now in prison, is cutting himself to bolster his insanity claim. Dr. Crane is called for an evaluation. When they're alone, Falcone demands that Crane transfer him to the asylum, or he'll begin talking about his illegal experiment on the asylum inmates, essentially blackmailing him. After some thought, he shows him a sack mask, snort gas for his briefcase, and he puts it on. Falcone screams in horror from the hallucination. Crane informs him that he must be sent to Arkham, saying he's not faking. That night, Batman meets with Gordon, reveals a disturbing discovery. Half of the substances aren't being distributed to regular dealers. Instead, they're ending up in the Narrows. He also suggests questioning the corrupt cop. Bruce quickly tracks him down and swiftly apprehends him and hangs him upside down from a rooftop. Terrified, the criminal confesses that the rabbits are being sent to Narrows and that they contain a different substance. Batman leaves him hanging and disappears. Shortly after, Rachel's boss is murdered by a hitman disguised as a police officer after discovering sensitive information at Wayne's Industries. In the Narrows, Batman finds an apartment filled with stuffed animals. Just as Crane and two men enter, he hides. Crane orders gasoline to be doused. Batman intervenes, defeats the thugs, but Crane surprises him and launches gas at the hallucination from cylinders hidden in his shirt. Bruce collapses to the ground, paralyzed by a vision of bats and the murder of his parents. Crane douses him with gasoline, taunts him, and throws a lighter at his chest. The suit bursts into flames. Desperate, Batman leaps out of the window and rolls around in the rain to extinguish the fire and staggers to his harpoon. He fires it towards a rooftop and manages to escape. From there, he radios Alfred. Still under the effects of the gas, he screams before passing out. Bruce wakes up with a start to the sound of his father's voice. Alfred tells him he's been unconscious for 2 days. Today, it's his birthday. Bruce tells him he has felt the effects of Crane's gas before, but never this intense. Fox appears and warns him not to return to dangerous places. He explains that he's developed an antidote for the toxin and can vaccinate people against its effects, although he doubts Bruce wants to be exposed again.
You're out at night looking for kicks. Someone's passing around the weaponized hallucinogens.
He agrees to bring him more of the antidote. Rachel arrives at the mansion to give Bruce a birthday present and apologizes for not attending the party. She's interrupted when she receives a message informing that Falcone has been transferred to the asylum of Crane's orders. Suspecting that something's wrong, she heads there. Bruce, realizing the danger, transforms into Batman, though the guests will soon arrive at his party. Rachel arrives at Arkham and sees Falcone delirious, repeating "Scarecrow." When she asks Crane about the meaning, he tells her that many inmates project their feels into an external figure, such as a scarecrow. Without them knowing, Batman overhears them. Rachel demands demands a second medical evaluation. But Crane takes her to the lower levels of the asylum, where he reveals that several inmates are dumping toxins in the water system. As she tries to escape, Rachel is gassed by Crane, who is now wearing his mask. He begins to hallucinate. The lights go out. Batman has arrived. Crane tells him to ignore Rachel, as she won't survive long on that dose. He believes only Batman could stop his plan, but he hopes the police will catch him first. Batman appears and easily defeats the guards. He gasses Crane with his own toxin. Crane is delirious with terror. Batman asks him who he works for, and Crane replies, Ra's al Ghul. Batman freezes. Ra's is dead. He tries to get more information. Crane has already lost his mind. The police arrive, but no one wants to go in. They don't want to face Batman. Only Gordon dares. He's sure he's not the enemy. After everything we've seen up to this point, we can see how fear in its use has evolved. Dr. Crane's workers are scared when they're about to face Batman.
Can he really fly?
I heard it can disappear.
Fears occurs when something is unknown. The mask is the symbol that emphasizes the fear of the unknown and the lack of fear in carrying out the actions without being judged. Scarecrow is a villain, also armed with a mask, in which he conceals his true identity. He generates terror due to the unknown, like Batman. But whose focus is more on the exhalation of fear as a catalyst for conflict than it is as a counter-argument. Batman, therefore, counterparts the same phenomenon, generating fear but with a completely opposite purpose. It is the perfect duality between the fear generated in others and the fear lost in one's actions. This, beyond denying Bruce's identity, which we will discuss later, grants him a superhuman identity. Gordon, who has gotten ahead of the SWAT team, is intercepted by Batman, who asks him to take Rachel to Narrows Alley to administrate the antidote. He can't escape carrying her. He activates a device in his boot that imitates an ultrasonic signal. A swarm of bats descend on the building, disordering the SWAT team. Batman plans to escape, jumps from the heights, uses his cape as a parachute. He cuts through the wall with explosives, reunites with Gordon, and picks up Rachel. He then escapes in Tumbler, while being pursued by police car and helicopters, crossing ramps, tunnels, and rooftops. Back in the Batcave, Bruce administrates one of the 3 vials of the antidote that Fox gave him to Rachel. Gordon, meanwhile, receives reports that Gotham's water system has been contaminated. No one noticed before because the toxin only takes effect when inhaled. Rachel wakes up and Bruce explains what happened. He gives her 2 remaining vials, one for Gordon and one for mass production. Later, Alfred speaks with Bruce. He warns them that he's losing the sight of the mission. If he takes it personally, he'll just be a vigilant. Bruce insists that he's only trying to help, just like his father did. Alfred replies, for Thomas, helping wasn't about proving anything to anyone, not even himself. Bruce throws a party at his mansion, greets the guests, but is only interested in talking to Fox. He asks for more antidotes, but Fox hesitates. If the toxin is a gas, why was it put in the water? Then he remembers the device stolen from Wayne's Enterprise, a vaporizer capable of vaporizing large quantities of water. If activated, the toxin will spread through the air and cover the entire city. Fear and chaos will take hold of Gotham until it's destroyed. Suddenly, a guest approaches Bruce. She wants to introduce him to someone, to Ra's al Ghul. Bruce murmurs that he saw that man die, but someone questions him, suggesting that perhaps that man is immortal. Bruce turns and sees Duckard. He slowly realizes that it's the true Ra's al Ghul. Bruce, knowing what's about to happen, acts like a jerk and kicks the mansion's guests out. He needs to get them away from everything spiraling out of control. Ray smiles. It's useless, and it's too late. Crane already has everything ready to execute his plan. When the vaporizer disperses in the air, Gotham will be destroyed. It explains that the city has reached a point of no return. Corruption, violence, and crime has consumed it. There is no salvation left. Only destruction remains to make way for something new. The League of Shadows has spent centuries in limiting decadence. They sacked Rome, they spread the plague, and burned London. Whenever a civilization reaches its breaking point, they restore balance. The League has tried to destroy Gotham before, through economic crisis that triggered the Great Depression when Bruce was a child. The city would have collapsed if it weren't for the families like Wayne, who've helped to rebuild it. Now, it has returned to finish the job. Bruce refuses to join Ra's al Ghul, convinced that there's still good people in Gotham. In response, Ra's attacks him, pushing him against a falling beam and leaving him unconscious as the mansion burns. Chaos reigns in Narrow. Hundreds of criminals, psychopaths, and murderers are released from the asylum. Rachel wakes up in her house with 2 vials of antidote. Alfred returns to the mansion and knocks out a guard with a golf club, praying that he isn't a firefighter. He enters the burning house and rescues Bruce. He takes him to the Batcave just as the mansion collapses. Bruce, stunned by the loss, is confronted by Alfred. His father's legacy isn't in the bricks, but in his actions. He quotes Thomas Wayne, Batman's father, "Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up." Once again, demonstrating that even though his lost father, he still has people who love him and that he's not alone. Meanwhile, Rachel finds Gordon in the Narrows and gives him the antidote. antidote. She tries to leave the island, but it's too late. The bridge has been raised. A corrupt cop activates the vaporizer. The water evaporates, and the toxin is released. The criminals begin to hallucinate. Confused and terrified, they attack each other. Batman suits up and arrives at Narrows. He explains to Gordon that this is just the beginning. They plan to take the vaporizer on the train to the central water system to vaporize the entire city. He tells them to take the Batmobile and destroy the lives before the train reaches its destination. Meanwhile, Rachel is facing the Scarecrow who terrorizes the city with a horse. But thanks to the antidote, Rachel's about to subdue him with a taser to his face. Ra's al Ghul and his men load the vaporizer into the train. Batman follows. Gordon speeds up in the Batmobile. It's a nice touch that it's not just Batman. He drives the car because, as mentioned before, Batman isn't Bruce Wayne. He isn't a person, but the symbol of justice. They approach the central tower. This is the final battle. Gordon destroys the tracks. The train won't be able to reach the water tower. Batman and Ra's al Ghul continue fighting on the moving train. Batman has a super hand. As the train hurtles forward, Ra's al Ghul takes advantage and taunts Bruce, reminding him that he's just a man in a cape and he can't fight injustice or stop the train. However, Batman makes it clear that he's never intended to stop it. Just then, Gordon destroys the track's foundation. Batman seizes the opportunity, overpowers Raj, and tells him he won't kill him, but he doesn't have to save him either. He blows up the back of the train, jumps out, and glides away. Raj watches as the train derails and crashes. The microwave emitter explodes, destroying the train and neutralizing the threat. This moment represents the accumulation of everything Bruce has learned throughout his journey. The interrogation of teachings of those who shaped his life. The fear of death, generating with the passion of his father, is resolved with the death of his mentor, Ra's al, and one of the father figures. Specifically, the father figure who represents the use of fear to control others, which Bruce rejects, but whose teachings still linger with him. With Ra's al's death right in front of Wayne's tower, which is a direct symbolism of death of the false teacher figure who had been embodied by Ra's, and the salvation of the true father figure, now symbolized in Alfred, it is understood that death is just another necessary stage for progress to build his own path. Back at the ruins of the mansion, Rachel visits Bruce, already knowing that he is Batman, since he had rescued her earlier. She asks who he is, and Batman replies that action determines who he is. At that moment, she knew. They shared a kiss, and she adds, "I was wrong. Your father would be proud of you, just like I am." This victory represents when Bruce seals the well, a symbolic impression of his deepest fears, locked within him, haven't been overcome. However, all of this is merely artificial, since Bruce hasn't truly conquered his fear. He has only hidden them, buried them. None of his previous fears were defeated. They were simply concealed beneath the mask. This is evident when at the end of the movie, Gordon hands a card, a dangerous man that is on the loose. Always leaves a card at the crime scene. Batman flips it over. The Joker. This one will act as a narrative catalyst, releasing the fears still lingering beneath the mask, waiting to be awakened. The story of Batman is about someone who, despite feeling fear, chose to keep moving forward. He didn't try to hide his darkness, but face it directly and use it as a source of strength. He learned that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the ability to control it and give it purpose. Fear didn't make him less afraid. It made him braver. He was lost, but still, he searched for a way through his pain, seeking help when he needed, and created his own tools when he lacked them. He refused to let his tragedy define him as a victim. Instead, he turned his suffering into a reason to do good, not just for myself, but for others. Without superpowers, he became resilient and unbreakable. The key lesson he carried from childhood was his father's words: "We fall so we can learn to pick ourselves back up," which becomes the foundation of his entire philosophy.